Hello.
Are you ready? Okay. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I feel like the last 3 weeks it's been very gloomy outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to stop. Is it raining right now?
Mm-hmm.
I have a white t-shirt. It's not going to be good. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my speech today. And so Allison was 3 years old when her mother died. And she was 4 when she found out why. Her mother, who had tucked her in and given her a bath, given her a kiss, had died that night in a car in the CVS parking lot from an overdose.
Oh, God.
She was 3 years old and was left an orphan. Now, Allison's not real, but she's based on the life of a close friend of mine. She lived through her overdose, both seeing the tears stream down her 3-year-old daughter's face as she woke up in the hospital with tubes coming out of her body, pushed her in the path of sobriety, and tomorrow she'll celebrate 2 years sober from drugs and alcohol. I stand with my friend as an advocate for safe injection sites. And it's not just because it's the difference between losing a mother and a friend, but also because it can be the difference between the high rates of drug overdose deaths that we have just in our local area. So to begin, what is a safe injection site? I only had a few responses to my survey, but a big majority of you didn't know what it was. The Villa Treatment Center in a 2017 article described safe injection sites as medically supervised facilities which are designed to provide individuals with an addiction a safe and hygienic environment in which they can take illegal drugs intravenously. Now, this means that safe injection sites are a place where you, an addict, can go and get sterile needles to inject drugs. But they also offer nurses there to supervise your injection, as well as to save your life if you overdose. And they offer rehabilitation services to help try to get you back on the track to sobriety. But besides assisting and limiting the number of overdoses, safe injection sites also help to curb the rates of HIV infection and hepatitis. These are typically spread through addicts by sharing and stealing needles. Safe injection sites provide clean needles, tourniquets, water, and drug cooking equipment. While some say that promotes drug use and distribution, what it really does is keep drug paraphernalia off the streets and out of the hands of our children. And it's somewhere where it can be disposed of properly. According to the CDC, in 2017, there were 38,739 new cases of HIV, and in 2016, there were 15,807 deaths due to HIV. Now, HIV patients who inject drugs only made up 6% of this. But imagine how many people a year live on the streets and go undiagnosed because of drugs. A study done by the University of British Columbia found that addicts that use Insight, an injection site in Vancouver, Canada, are 70% less likely to share and steal dirty needles. Insight sees roughly 800 addicts a day, averaging at about 15 overdoses per week, which may sound like a lot. That's averaging about 2 overdoses a day. But since its conception, Insight has seen 0 deaths due to drugs. And that's thanks to a drug called naloxone. Naloxone is most typically known as Narcan. Narcan typically comes in a nasal spray and is the only FDA-approved nasal spray form of naloxone. Narcan is an opioid blocker, and it cuts off a drug's effect on the brain, which sometimes can stop an addict's high for days at a time, no matter how much drugs they inject. Narcan is only to be used in the event of a medical emergency, such as an overdose, which is when the drug blocks the brain's They've taken too much of the drug, now the drug is affecting the brain's communication with the respiratory and circulatory systems. Narcan works very quickly and is considered a narcotic. Everyday average Joes can go to the pharmacy and buy Narcan, and you can keep it in your purse or in your glove compartment, and you too might be able to save someone's life one day. What I want you to take away from this isn't just the facts. In Philadelphia alone, we've seen drug-related death after drug-related death. They've more than doubled in the last 3 years. I've seen recovery house after recovery house spring up in my own neighborhood. And the church that's a stone's throw away from my house every Tuesday and Thursday nights is filled with recovering addicts. Think of their mothers and fathers. Think of their children. Think of your own. You might ask me, Kyra, I'm only one person. What can I do? You can learn their stories and lend your hand in support. You can educate your own children about the dangers of drugs, just as you would about drinking and driving. Strive to cast your children in a different mold than we were made. Even if you can't save an addict today, maybe raising our children with an understanding of addiction is what our country needs. And maybe a safe injection site is what the United States needs. So we can help addicts get back to what matters most. For addicts like my friends, that's her now 6-year-old daughter who has killer dance moves and a toothy grin, and her newborn son. Thank you.